the blessing of strength and stability in the Muslim community. After the victory at Hunain, the Prophet Muhammad, peace and blessings be upon him, returned to Medina. The Prophet received news there from the north a large army was gathering in Syria. The Byzantine Emperor Heraclius was thinking of invading Arabia and conquering Medina. He was also giving weapons and money to Christian Arab tribes to attack the Muslim communities around them. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, decided that this situation had to be dealt with the fullest force before things got worse, before they invaded Arabia. The Prophet couldn't afford to send anyone in his place because there was too much at stake. Medina was going through a drought and conditions were tough as it was, so he asked every tribe to send as many warriors from all over Arabia. Funds were needed to prepare the army with weapons, armor, horses, supplies, food, and rations. The Muslims gave generously. As the Muslims were getting ready for this expedition, the hypocrites began to make their excuses and create turmoil and rumors. They tried to persuade that their family and friends could not go and that people had certain situations that they could not leave. But when the Muslims finally gathered up their army, they actually had 30,000 soldiers, so it really didn't matter. They traveled through the hot desert with little water until they reached a small town in Syria named Tabuk. The Byzantines knew that the Muslims were there. The spies informed them of a massive army of 30,000, and they did not want to face such an army in this enemy that they had heard so much about their miraculous victories. So there was no battle after all. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, used this time in Syria to make alliances with tribes. Many tribes entered into an alliance with the Muslims and others converted to Islam. Around this time, God revealed a chapter of the Quran that was quite different in substance. The 9th chapter of the Quran was called the disassociation or the repentance. It's the only chapter of the Quran that does not begin with the sacred opening in the name of God, the compassionate and merciful. The subject matter of the chapter revolves around being on guard against and facing the threats of those who would attack the Muslims internally and externally. The first verses give a final ultimatum to all remaining polytheists in Arabia. They should either leave or convert to Islam. Much of the surah highlights how the polytheists have proven over and over that they are treacherous, hateful people. This chapter also extensively addresses the phenomenon of the hypocrites and their plotting and their fake religiosity. After Tabuk, the Quran addressed the plots of the Christian Byzantine Empire as well. These verses legislated a tough approach in order to keep the believers safe from threats against their stability and enabling them to have the capacity to spread their message. During the months after Tabuk, the Arab tribes realized that Islam must be the truth, and they considered the transformation of Mecca and Arabia. So delegations flooded Medina to meet the Prophet Muhammad and discuss his teachings. About 70 delegations from all over Arabia came in, and they all ended up converting to Islam and leaving idol worship. They were told to go and destroy all of their statues and idols, and they were sent with scholars to teach them the practices of Islam. The Prophet, peace and blessings be upon him, provided them with the necessary means that they needed to grow. He told his companions to teach them to reflect and study the Quran, to begin to pray the 5 daily prayers, and to give charity, and to work on their spiritual standing. The Prophet met with many Christian and Jewish tribes as well who wanted to maintain their faith. He made a pact with them that they would have a tax to pay to exempt them from military service and give them a status protected as non-Muslim citizens of the Islamic State. Just 22 years before a common man was reciting verses and was mocked and ridiculed with many accusations hurled at him. And now perhaps the greatest miracle was complete. The entire peninsula of Arabia had recognized the authority of God and his final messenger through the revelation of the Holy Quran. And here we are 1,445 years later, and tens of thousands of people convert globally to the same understanding as those Arabs to whom it was first revealed.